I have these friends, Dan and Sheila. They're podcast hosts.
Welcome to Profiling Criminal Minds. I'm Dan.
And I'm Dr. Redmond.
And we are back for the last episode about the original Danish version of Those Who Kill. Or as I call it, hey, we watch a lot of TV shows.
And all I can say is that, so if Morgan wanted to emulate the Danish Those Who Kill with the worst bad ending episode ever.
What the hell was this?
I know. That's all. I could look at it and go,
oh my God. Right?
What a useless piece of...
What were they thinking?
1 hour and 30 minutes.
Yep.
I wasted my time.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Oh
my God.
My God.
Yeah, that's the correct response to this thing. Oh, what am I watching?
It's not even...
It's
so bad. Like, it's not bad in the way that the Derek Morgan thing was bad. It's bad because... Oh my God. And why you knew this was ending? It wasn't even like they created an ending hoping they would get another season, which I think is what the Morgans did. No,
100%. That's a cliffhanger. That's a cliffhanger meant to say. Cliffhanger. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I'm going, okay, so we think you screwed it up, but damn it all, I still wanted to see the end of the cliffhanger.
Absolutely.
But this one, you're just looking at it and going, oh, this is what you're going to do.
This is where we're ending. This is where we're leaving the characters. Okay.
I could not believe it. It was plodding. It was slow. You couldn't make out half the drawings that were there, like trying to figure out what he saw.
Yeah.
Like what was drawing and how he figured anything out, and some of it just didn't make an awful lot of sense. And they should have figured out that there was a pattern being followed here earlier than they did. And I could give you a whole bunch of things. And about the only good thing about it is that the guy who was actually doing, because it was even like, okay, it can't be this guy. It's obviously this guy, but it can't be this guy because they got to be having a twist somewhere in this. Because you can't start off. This is not some of these other shows, I
know.
But did you say, in that sense, it was like a 45-minute or 43-minute Criminal Minds episode dragged out with a bad ending.
Oh my God, that ending.
I loved the four of them walking, though.
Yeah, it was nice seeing that.
At the beginning, having this
action-y pose. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, they walk up to a crime scene one more time.
Yeah. Last time.
Yeah. Well, because as we learn at the start, Thomas is quitting.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get a regular job. He's going to get his professorship, and he's going to stop working with the police.
Yeah, and it obviously is not a part-time job. It's a full professorship at the university.
He's ready. I'm sure he has gotten some amount of notoriety based on his work with the police that has made him a more attractive lecturer. I'm sure he'll be able to get published if that's what he wants. This
I'm sure he's been published already.
Yeah,
from his PhD and everything else.
Oh, completely. But beyond that, the prestige of working the police is going to get him there.
Yeah.
And then we get this episode. So, a couple of things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe it's just the actor they picked, right? He did not look young enough, right? I feel like he should have looked a little younger for the age he was, because the idea is he killed this girl, and then he joined the army, and he went to Iraq, and he came back. And it's just, I feel like he should have looked noticeably younger than Thomas.
Oh, you got the timeline wrong.
No, I didn't get the timeline wrong. He killed the girl, he got out of jail, and then he killed the girl. He got out of jail. He went to the army and got kicked out of the army.
No. He went to the army after
juvie. You're right. I said that.
He went to the army. He went into the army, and then they kind of discharged him from the army, and that's where Thomas met him. Yeah. And then he ended up 6 years later killing this 15-year-old girl, and that is the one that Thomas was talking about, even though he says it wasn't his fault.
Right.
And,
okay.
Remember at the beginning, and then he killed this girl, and so then he ended up in jail for 7 years. So he is 7, 8, 9, 10. So it should be in his late 20s. He does look.
I'm just saying, given
a little bit worn for someone 27.
That's what I was getting at. He looked pretty close in age to Thomas, and that seemed a little strange to me. That's not a big part of my complaint about the episode. So what they've done here is it's far from our biggest complaint about the episode. Because what they've done here is they have combined a couple of episodes of television that we've covered here on the show. And I don't think there's any other way to describe this, but it opens with what the Reaper did in Omnivore. And it's impossible not to read it that way.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing that happens in the episode is that murder from Omnivore. Where he just goes on the bus and shoots a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you're supposed and it's weirdly similar. To the point where, as you said, well, we know they were watching Criminal Minds. We already knew they were watching Criminal Minds based on them doing their adaptation of The Fox. But if there were any doubt left in our minds, it's gone when you see this episode. Because, and this is the key part, the whole episode is an adaptation of Lucky.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. I mean, it doesn't have the Satanism and the idea that, like, some force and they take out the cannibalism, but the central idea that there's this guy who should never have been let out untreated because his life was nothing but these unbelievably violent fantasies that he was desperate to carry out. Right? That's Lucky. That's what like. There's no other way to describe it. We're watching an adaptation of the episode Lucky. To a ridiculously direct extent. I mean, there's even a scene where he's using a cookbook to find out how to disjoint someone's arm so he can disassemble them.
Terrible.
In one of the most awful things I've seen on television ever. Like, it's one of those things where you sit there and you watch it like, I can't believe they put this on television. Okay. Like, I'm glad you felt the same way as I did when you were watching.
Well, as I said, it was like the prison one.
Yeah,
most of the time they don't do it, but it was so bad, and because it turns out, of course, that Lucky wasn't the villain.
Well, no, he was. He just also wasn't. There were two villains.
Well, yes. Well, no. Lucky did. Okay.
Yeah, he did half the murder. No. The only murders, the only people that the other villain commits is killing Lucky and his identical twin brother.
Oh yes, that's
Yeah.
And then he went after Thomas.
And then he went after Thomas when it starts being an adaptation of that one episode of Touching Evil.
I know.
But the weird part is, so they go to see the daughter, right? They go to see the father of the woman who was killed. The girl who was killed, because she was 15. Right? They go to see the father, and the minute he says, "Do you have children?" I'm sitting there, I'm like, wait a minute. Are they adapting? Is this just becoming that episode of Touching Evil? And then, it does. It becomes that episode of Touching Evil, which is not something I was expecting. That was quite a surprise to see Touching Evil getting referenced so directly. Because it's not a well-remembered show. But, the guys who made this show, they love Criminal Minds and they love Touching Evil.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, right?
Yeah, but why would you do it? Well, maybe they just assume that most people in Denmark didn't watch Touching Evil and didn't watch
Criminal Minds.
and Criminal Minds, particularly Criminal Minds. But I don't understand how they created this. Why Thomas didn't tell Katrine he was leaving. I understand that he's going to buy the house. We find out his wife is pregnant.
Jesus, they're laying this stuff on thick.
You know, I mean, you're watching this thing and you're going, oh, shit.
Yep. You know,
they're not gonna.
Doom is slowly descending on us.
Yes, you can just see it and you
feel
just
it coming. And you're like, oh, God. Are they really going this way? And yeah, they were.
And the high point of it was when Lars killed the guy.
Yeah, that made me happy.
Yeah, Lars just walks in and shoots him.
Really?
Twice.
Not going to pretend I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, that was good. That was really good.
Pretty satisfying, I'm not going to lie.
Oh,
but it had always been a bleak show. All right, so I mean, we'll talk a little more. I don't think we're going to go into this that deep into this one as we need to, because we've already talked about these episodes before.
Yes, and
we have extensively talked about these specific episodes of television. Like
and the problem is they didn't make it better; they made it worse.
They did make it worse. No,
and it goes to the interview we just, you know, this other thing we had. We don't mind when you remake an episode and you make it better.
Yeah, just don't make it worse.
Yeah, but making it worse, and this is like
a lot worse.
A lot worse. And I would assume, what are they thinking that, are they trying to imply that Katrine is actually secretly in love with Thomas?
How else can you interpret that?
I don't know how else you can read that.
That comes out of nowhere.
You know, and you're just sort of sitting there going, oh, good.
This has not been the show up until this point.
This is not the show. And you're supposed to say that she's falling apart because she's losing her forensic psychologist.
I know, right?
Okay, it's so, you know, and she's, you know, she was perfectly happy that he was going out with his wife.
Yeah. Like this is not the follow-up to the last episode we just watched. It just doesn't feel like a sane follow-up to the episode of television we just watched.
When I first started watching it, what I thought, like when I first, you know, that first thing, and he's found this house, and he applied for the job at the university and he got it.
Yep. And
so his wife is happy. He's happy. They're going to do this. And she says, well, I got to think about it. And then, you know, and so like that sort of part is very nice.
Oh, yeah.
Right. You know, and the fact is that the wife just says, okay, she's going to trust that all really of this is going to work.
Yeah.
He's done with it this time. And she puts in and she outbids, because this is a bidding war over this house that Thomas wants to buy.
Yeah.
And then you have, and it's just horrendous. I'd still, even as you're watching this, the father of the daughter who kills,
spoiler alert. Oh, wait. I guess we should probably get to that point. So, yeah, all right. So they're doing an adaptation of that one episode of Touching Evil. Both the original and the new one did very close versions of the episode. And in both cases, you were kind of like, I don't know that this was his fault. I don't know that this was Dave's fault in both cases. More so in one than the other.
Yeah.
Right. More so in the British one than the other. I don't think, like, because in the original one, you know, I don't blame Mark for not killing that guy. It's hard to shoot somebody in the back. But Dave, you know, not shooting and then trying to talk the guy down and specifically failing to talk the guy down.
Yeah.
Right. That is a concrete understanding why this guy could blame Dave for his daughter's death. I 100%, I track the logic. I understand where this guy's coming from. I don't agree with him, right? But I understand Dave stupidly wallowing in his own guilt and, you know, allowing this and making himself, going and flagellating himself to the father of this girl, making the whole situation worse, right? because he's
Given
flagellating
that it was the
himself.
father's fault anyway.
Exactly. Given that it was the father's fault anyway, which, we didn't have as much sympathy for that dad as maybe we should have, because he's the one who didn't see that his daughter got home safely and sent him off in this taxi that turned out to be driven by a serial killer. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like and whereas in the remake, right, in the American version, it's not that, like, it is so much more tangential, because he decides to target Dave because Dave, right, he tries to target Dave because Dave failed to catch him fast enough. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's a stretch to me.
Yeah.
Like, that was always a stretch to me. I didn't buy that. Like, Dave, you specifically should have worked faster in catching this guy. Come on. Be serious.
Yeah,
that's not how the police work. They're doing that. And it's like, this is going to be me defending the police. But, of all things. But especially, we're talking about a fictional show. And in that show, the cops are doing their best. Right? Yeah. So yeah, the idea that he's going to blame Dave because this guy didn't get caught fast enough, that seemed like a stretch to me. And here, it seemed tenuous. And I know it's because, like, Thomas puts himself on this guy's radar by going up and talking to him and saying, I have a son. Right? Mm-hmm. And, like, he puts himself, but even still, like, this guy deciding, well, because you didn't give this guy therapy, that's why my daughter's dead, seemed like a stretch to me.
Well, yeah, because he didn't, and ultimately, and Thomas, we know, Thomas explains the problem. The problem was, here's the problem. The problem was that when he saw him initially, there wasn't a major issue. Mm-hmm. And the guy just needed to kind of he was at the beginnings, and it was hard to tell whether he was really a schizophrenic or not.
Yeah.
And I don't think, and then Dave Thomas after about, what was it, 6 weeks, 2 months or something, and wasn't seeing him anymore. And he was he discharged at that point, or did he get to see another psychiatrist? This Thomas
he saw other psychiatrists because we hear his tapes.
Yeah, we hear the tapes. But what I'm trying to think is, whether I'll have to go back and think about that, but it doesn't matter, because what happens is that he wants to see Thomas.
Yeah.
Well, in therapy sessions, in hospitals, etc., you don't get to pick.
No.
Anyway, right? And whatever happens, Thomas still couldn't have, even though he feels responsible in the end, because he knew the guy wanted to see him specifically, but he was busy with his life and doing other things. So he didn't see him because he had no real inkling that this guy was going to get this bad.
No.
Okay?
No, there was nothing in his history that suggested.
Yeah, that he was going to get this bad.
Yeah.
And it was only when he hears the tapes of him talking to his psychiatrist and how it's only Thomas that can fix him, etc. Now, but the 15-year-old girl's father doesn't have access to any of those tapes. All he's got is the report, the psychiatric report from this guy, of which Thomas is the initial intake assessment.
Yeah.
That's all it was. And for this, he blames Thomas for everything.
Okay.
Now,
what I would say is, and there is a possibility here, as I was thinking about it after watching it.
Okay.
And if I'm crazy here, given that, like, the father turns out to be a military guy and a murderer, and he's capable of building bombs, I think, and if I miss something, go ahead and tell me. I suspect that we were supposed to think that, like, the reveal was supposed to be that he did have access to the tapes, and that's who strangled Thomas in the car. It was the father who strangled Thomas in the car, not the killer.
Well, I thought it was the killer. Just
So
like
did
Thomas
I.
did.
Only when I got to the end do I realize, why didn't they show us? And I'm like, oh, okay, that's why he's blaming Thomas. Because he believes, like the guy believed, that if Thomas had just seen him, it would have stopped him from killing. Right?
Yeah, which is highly unlikely.
No, of course it's unlikely. It's it's an excuse. But that is what I came to believe when I was thinking about it later. And I think it's to the show's discredit that it does not come down on that one way or the other. Because that's just my theory.
Because what I would say is that you're right.
I would say that's what they intend, right?
That makes more sense.
Yes. Okay, good.
Okay.
I was worried I was going crazy.
Because the explanation for that has to be that this guy tells Thomas he's heard the tapes.
Yes.
That's all. You needed one friggin' line.
Yeah.
And that would have solved that problem.
Yeah.
Because we know that he has caught the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And so say it to Thomas or say it to the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Like mention it in that scene.
Somewhere mention it, that, and I heard those tapes. He would have to tell it to Thomas when Thomas, at some point, there had to be
but then there would have to be, you would have to rewrite the entire end of the episode because there would have to be a confrontation between the two of them, and there never is. There's never, they never meet.
Well, I'm trying to figure out where you could put it in. Yes, so you'd have to kind of, have Thomas talking with him. Somehow or another, but since they wanted to kill off Thomas.
Well, what you would do is you'd have there be a phone on the bomb that he talks to Thomas through. Like that is narratively
there is a phone on the bomb. Yeah,
no, there's a phone on the bomb that's just a detonator. And what you'd have to do is you'd have to have a bit where he calls Thomas on that phone. Mm-hmm. Right? And that is how you would get that scene between the two of them that we would have needed to make this clearer.
Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think it's clear right now. I'm glad you agree with me now that I've said it.
Now that you said it, it actually makes sense.
Okay.
So that would mean, and that's only because I thought that if he had heard the tapes, right?
His behavior makes more sense.
His behavior makes more sense because we're never told, and there's no inkling that he has until you brought up, okay, it's the 15-year-old girl's father who was trying to strangle Thomas.
In the car.
That
I think was happening. Now that makes more sense, right?
Now, but here's how you could have done that too and saved Thomas's life is that, of course, he would have left some DNA on that phone and they would have checked for the DNA and found out that it belonged to somebody else, nobody in that cycle. And maybe, they have the father's DNA on file
it would closely match the dead girl.
Yeah, it would closely match the dead girl.
Yeah.
Yes, that's how you would do it.
That's how you would do it narratively.
Yeah.
No, I think that would work fine.
Mm-hmm.
But
then you would have to have, and then you can still do it one or two ways. This gives them time to go catch the guy because he's not that far away.
No,
and they all know it.
No.
Thomas says it. He says, look, the guy has got to be close enough to do this.
No, that is the big part that they're missing.
Yeah. And so, and then maybe they can catch him before the bomb blows up, or they just get there in time, or not in time, like seconds away, and the bomb blows up.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of...
Okay, fine.
Speaking of, I don't think that there's any reason to believe any of our listeners are ever going to be tied to a bomb in their lives. That's probably not going to happen to you. It doesn't happen to most people. Almost no one ever gets tied to a bomb, so you're probably not going to have to worry about this. But if you are ever tied to a bomb, and there's some kind of a countdown on it, and it looks like it's going to go off, just as my pro tip to you, just pull out all the wires.
Yeah.
You got literally nothing to lose. There's literally, you can make no situation worse by pulling all of those wires.
Yeah.
Like, it is not possible to make the situation that you're in worse if you pull all those wires. And most bombs can be disarmed by just pulling out all the wires.
And guess what? You know who would have had to pull out the wires? Because the assumption is that if he gets off the scale,
Yeah.
if Thomas gets off the scale,
Yeah.
that the bomb will blow up
Oh, yeah, they make that very
early.
clear.
They make that very clear.
Yeah, they
So
show
it has
us
to
the
be-
little teeter-totter over and over again.
Yes. So guess what?
Katrine would have to come
Katrine
and
would
pull
have
the...
had, pull all the wires off.
Yeah, and it would have been
and
very
she-
satisfying.
And it would have been
And it would have allowed
satisfying.
her to, like, say goodbye to Thomas.
Yes. Instead, she's now got the guilt if she could have saved his life.
Yep. Making it all the more bleak as a show.
Mm-hmm.
They really wanted to go out in the most depressing way possible.
You know, leaving behind his son, his wife, and
Yep.
his unborn baby,
Yep. That's where they take it.
who have just spent a whole stack of money on a new house.
Well, I'm sure he is well insured.
Yes, I'm sure he's well insured.
And the thing is, he was working for the police when that happened. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like some kind of bonus insurance he'll get from the Policemen's Benevolent Association or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
No, I think they'll be doing fine financially, but you're absolutely right to be very frustrated.
I just thought, how stupid. Just end it. There's no
reason to end it
like
like this. No, I could not agree with you more. Right?
And what the frig is Katrina doing going off to Munich?
Yeah, I know. That was a strange choice.
Munich?
Of all places.
Maybe Vienna, maybe Paris, maybe Rome. I don't know, but Munich?
All right. Maybe she's got family there. Who knows?
Who knows?
But yes, it is nice that
Munich.
his statement is, well, you
Jeez.
can always come back.
Yeah.
It was a very sweet wrap up to their thing. To her relationship with her boss. But
why didn't she realize she was really in love with her boss and not
that would have been nice.
That would have been better.
Yeah, that I would have been happier with that resolution.
Yes.
I mean, there's a limit to how happy we could be with any resolution based on the pieces they were working with here.
It was just,
it was god
awful. It was like,
it's not a good ending.
I mean, I actually understood what the Morgan brothers were doing.
No,
with their
100%.
ending.
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't like it, but I get it.
Yeah.
But this one, I don't like it, and I don't get it.
No.
Why would you decide to go out like this?
You knew it was your last episode, and this is the feeling you wanted everyone to have in the last episode. That's the part that's crazy to me.
Yeah. So nobody's ever going to watch that show again.
No. No one's going to come back to Those Who Kill. Why would you?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, it was as frustrating an hour of television as I can remember seeing.
Yeah, this, when I got to the end, like, because I kept hoping, right?
Yeah, that it was going to turn it around. No, totally.
Every now and every time he got another phone call and it was still the same case, right? And I'm just going, oh, I hope he doesn't die.
Oh, I know. But then the minute I see it turning into that episode of Touching Evil, I was filled with dread. You know?
Yeah.
I was like, oh,
at
they're
least
not
his
really
little
doing
boy
it.
is alive.
Oh yeah, at least his little boy is fine.
They could have made it worse. They could have had it so that the little boy died.
Even this show wouldn't have done that.
Didn't kill a child.
No. Even this show wouldn't have done that. But oh my God. It was close.
It was close.
No, it was... It's such a frustrating ending. Also, and here's a part that bothered me, right? And this is just a plot thing where of them getting lazy, right? So they find out they dismiss the idea that the killer's still around because they found his DNA in the burned body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, he must have hijacked that car. But here's a question that never gets asked. Whose car was it? Nobody asks the question, whose car was it? Because it wasn't him in the video footage. It was his identical twin brother. And that's who burned in the car. And spoiler alert, it was his identical twin brother's car. Yet they have this whole we close the case thing based on finding DNA in a tooth, right? And it matching the killer, and that's fine. But it's like, nowhere in the records did you guys notice that he's got an identical twin brother? And B, like, you don't even have to check, like, his medical records and his history. And, well, it would be difficult because his twin brother, like, changed his name and moved to country. Yeah, but you can just check the records when you look for the person he hijacked the car from. The minute you looked, literally, so they type into the thing, whose car is it? Okay, well, let's bring up his phone in the DMV. Oh, he's the identical twin of the guy we're looking for.
Well, you see, they have to look at the license plate.
Yep.
Yeah, and the license plate will say who it belongs to.
Yes, that's my point. All you have to do is check the license, right? Check the license, you find out who it belongs to, and then you say, oh my God, it's the identical twin brother of the man we're looking for. There's a good chance that's who's burned to death in the car. It's so frustrating. So that really bothered me.
No, it was...
That part, that like little plot element, it's not a big part of the plot, but it bothered me more than I expected.
Well, it would have gotten, because it would have gotten them to
the brother faster.
Yeah,
it would have.
They eventually get to the brother, but it would have gotten them there faster because they don't find the tooth. You see, they base the DNA on bone marrow.
Yeah, sorry, bone marrow. Yes,
this is what they say.
And then the dental records are different. You're right.
And the tooth. But they get stuff out of the tooth, and then they say no, it was his brother.
Yeah, it was.
Now I didn't understand that it was his identical twin brother, but
I mean they certainly looked the same when they were kids.
Yeah,
but in any event, because it's also identical because they saw him in the video footage and it's clearly the same guy.
Yeah.
Like you see him in that CCTV footage, and I guess maybe they could have been fraternal twins, and they were unbelievably close. Who can say, right? Just so there's some fraternal twins who look
it doesn't matter,
but similar. But the point is, why did they not check whose car it was? Like there's a crazed murderer running around, showing up in a they think stolen car. Why would you not check to see if the owner of that car had been murdered? But they want to have a scene where they think he's dead and they all go to relax, and then it turns out he wasn't dead because there's a new
but
the guy gets burned in the tires.
Here's the thing. They think he hijacks the car.
Yeah.
See, the only way that I could I initially thought, well, maybe it's because it turns out that the father is the one who got the two brothers together and then burned them. So what if it was the father's car?
Then they would have known that too. No,
because they would have known that.
No, but the point is that we know it's not the father's car because we see the owner of the car just filling up at a gas station. That's what the CCTV footage was from. It was just footage of him filling up at a gas station on a way to go, and he thought meet his brother.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I found. You see why I found this so frustrating.
Well, right? I found it very frustrating, that part of it. When it gets to the end and he says, yeah, and I made you watch while I killed your brother. Yeah. Well, I burned your brother. And I'm going, okay, how the hell did you find them? Unless it was, you see, this is what
Actually, I do know that.
How did they find him?
This is the part that's very convoluted. Because he kidnapped his brother. Like, he arranged to have his brother, and this is what I think happened. And I will agree with you that the show is not clear about that. But listen to my theory and you can tell me what you think. So what I think happened was he contacted the brother, right? The twin brother who had changed his last name and said, your brother needs your help your brother is going nuts. He needs your help. And so that's when he drove to meet him and told his wife he was going on a fishing trip because he always lied to his wife when he was in contact with his brother. That all tracks. So he goes and he drives, and that's when he fills up his car and gets caught in the thing. And then he grabs him, puts a gun to his head, whatever, and says, call your brother and bring your brother here. And then your brother going to see me. And then when the brother arrives, or like when the brother gets close or something, he sets the car on fire so the brother sees it, right? The killer sees it. Now, the question for me is, okay, but why didn't he kill the killer then? Because the killer's still running around murdering people. And how did he then find him again when the guy was on the run from the cops? I guess he just followed him and knew where he was the whole time and just didn't bother to kill him?
Oh, I thought the father made that last one.
No, because we see
imitate,
him.
because I thought he already had.
No, because we see him after that. We see him light that guy on fire, and then we see him doing that thing where he tries to clean up remember he's cleaning up his thing and packing all the stuff into garbage, and he deals with his landlord. That all happens after he sets the guy on fire using tires. So he hasn't been locked up by the father that whole time.
So how did he get away from the father?
And how did was the father just following him around this whole time, letting him kill people? Well,
I don't know. I
mean, like killing that last guy with the tires?
You can understand why, dear listener, you can understand why
we were so unbelievably frustrated by this episode. I mean, I hope this isn't so too disjointed, but it's like, that's how this episode made me feel. I was just like, I was adrift.
Completely. The only through line you can see is the relationship between Thomas and his wife.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can track through this whole episode.
The whole episode. Nothing else tracks properly.
No.
And it's just like, I'm not even sure why they went to see the father in the first place.
I mean, because, actually, I do understand that. Because Thomas thinks, and again, we now know, I think we've come to the conclusion that it was the father who came to see Thomas. Because Thomas thinks that the killer has, like, come after him, he's worried that, like, they're worried that the killer has, like, come after the father or like is approaching the father in some way, and so the father might be in danger, or he might have noticed someone sneaking around or things like that, and so they're worried he's in danger and they need to check on him. So that's,
but you see, that to me, they didn't figure out early enough. Here's my the other problem that I had.
Please. Is
that the minute you hear that this doctor had worked at the hospital, where they sent the original guy, the killer, the original killer, the schizophrenic, to Iraq. And so, and I'm immediately going, well, obviously he's killing people who are related to him or somehow or another, right?
Yeah.
And
now, of course, that's hard to figure out, because one of the victims is just like a woman who hosts a radio show. But that's just because he listened to her.
Yeah, he listened to her, and then but I don't know. That to me, it just seemed that like these were smart enough people who should have gotten there sooner.
No, I completely concur with you.
You know that there is, and then they do their geographic profiling.
We do love the geographic profiling. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah,
I love it when they profile things geographically. We're never going to stop loving that, people.
At least they are not 3 circles.
At least it's not 3 circles on a map, but still, we love them geographic profiles.
Sometimes only 2 circles.
Sometimes 2 circles on our map are all you need. If there's one thing I've learned from television, it's sometimes you only need 2 circles on a map. Oh my God, I love it so much. But yeah, it's a convoluted episode. Like, I don't think it's our fault that we were this confused by the events of the episode. Like, I don't think this one's on us.
I don't think so either. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. Like, I can't even figure out why Thomas didn't tell Katrine he was going to be resigning.
What was that? Like, did he think she couldn't handle it emotionally? Which I guess she couldn't. But
But that doesn't seem to have ever bothered Thomas.
No, not at all. He's fine with pushing people. Like, that's who he is fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that in the last episode before.
Yeah.
him pushing Katrina so that it saved her life that he pushed her.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And so I'm sort of sitting there, and they're setting up all of a sudden this thing that Thomas knows that she's in love with him, and therefore he doesn't want to tell her because it's going to break her heart.
Yeah.
Well, why would he do that?
I know.
Because that doesn't fit with the conversation they have in the car, where he tells her that don't you want something else, because he's he doesn't. And Lars explains it to her. Not everybody is like us. Like, it's not even real. Like, you can only think that Katrina's sort of falling in love with this guy. And that's why she's so upset, because you can't understand the rest of it. Because what Lars says to her was very sensible too, which is, look, some of us want to have a life outside of this.
Yeah.
Unlike you, unlike me too. Right?
Because he has very much got the same issue.
Yeah, he's got the same issue she does. They should end up together, because then that's what they could spend all their time doing.
It would be in many ways healthier.
Yeah, much, much healthier. I was hoping that they would spend this sort of dealing with her issues with her stepfather.
Yeah, no, that was just but we were primed to think that because we had watched the American show.
Yeah.
This show never had any pretensions in that direction. It was just it was a bit of color they gave us for one episode to give us a bit of window into her backstory. It was never
why she was freaking. They only had to have that in the show because that's why she was freaking out in the prison thing.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
They had to explain her freak out.
A little bit of backstory for that one episode, but that's all it ever was in this show.
Yeah, and the same thing. Whereas this one goes back to Thomas telling the story of how, he let somebody down because obviously, and then he got free. It wasn't my fault. I only saw him for 6 weeks. And then I was out of the hospital, and the system, they let him out. I wouldn't have let him out.
Yeah.
And that's wishful thinking on his part.
Yeah.
Because he does know, as it turns out, it's kind of a bit of a fudge on his part, because he did know that this guy asked for him again.
Yeah.
Because the woman psychiatrist that was on the tape had called him.
Yeah, and he said that he had
could do a consult,
and he had only looked at it. He had only dealt with it from email for that from then on, and he hadn't really thought of it. So
this was his Jill. This was his Jill moment,
kind of. But I mean, it comes back to Lucky, right? And like the doctors who did not, see how dangerous Lucky was. Same basic idea.
Yeah. Except that he hadn't done all of those drawings yet.
No, that's true.
Because
Well, no, he had.
We do
wait. He had done some of the drawings because Thomas when he sees the woman with her head stuck out the window, keeps thinking he's seen it before. So he had done some of the drawing.
He'd done the odd drawing, okay,
but
they were very crude.
Yeah.
And it's only after he gets back from Iraq
that they're more detailed. Yes.
That they're more detailed and they're more obsessive. And after he was in jail.
Yeah.
Right? First of all, he comes back from Iraq and he has to put things into, he's completely destabilized.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm still not quite sure because they let him go and he needed to take his medication. We all know that schizophrenics are notorious for not
taking their medication.
Yeah, it's almost
a real problem.
Bad. Yeah, bipolar is sometimes second in that they don't like losing the highs and lows.
Yeah.
So they go flat, sort of. I don't know what they do, but anyway, you can tell when Elon Musk is off his medication.
Oh, you absolutely can. Oh my God, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. But anyway, schizophrenics have been notorious for that.
Oh, totally.
And, so like even that is not like you're looking at it. Okay. Yes. But he's in a state-run hospital.
Yeah.
And so then Thomas wants to kind of blame himself because he didn't follow up. Well, yeah. But, you look back and yes, he should have. in hindsight, yeah, he probably should have, but it seems that when he went to like Iraq, so Thomas saw him after he came back from Iraq.
Yes.
And then, but he had the odd drawing then, but they were very crude. They were not filled in. There was nothing. And then he killed the 15-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to jail, and it's in jail where the obsession. Although why in jail they were not keeping him on his schizophrenic meds, I don't know.
Budget cutbacks. I think I saw on this show at some point that there's real budget problems.
Yes, that's true.
In the
prison system.
In the prison system in Denmark.
You're right.
I feel like that came up once or twice.
Yeah. In that horrible episode that was well done and we'll never forget.
Yeah, it was. It was. Oh my God.
Not gonna watch that again either. I don't think I will ever have any need or interest in watching this again.
No.
I can watch Cracker, but I cannot watch it.
I know, right? Oof.
Oh, but particularly, well, the prison one, but this one was just like, and then to me, the cutting up scene that we can't tolerate, the measuring and all the rest of it. Oh my God.
It's as upsetting a thing as I've seen on television. So
and
if that was your goal, thumbs up.
Yeah, please. So gratuitous.
I know. Oof.
At this point, we didn't need to see all of that.
I did not need to see that.
No,
I'm happy to admit that I'm, squeamish and a coward. Fine.
That was, putting all this plastic around and then he's got, it was just like, oh, come on.
I know.
Well, I think because it happens 2/3 of the way through. And by this point, we're all fed up with this episode already.
Yeah.
Like, it was about there that I stopped and I said, well, I'm going to go and teach and I'll watch the rest of it when I get home. I don't care. I'm going to have my supper. I'm going to not watch it through supper.
I mean, you made the right decision. No one's going to fault you for that. But
yeah, but I just thought, oh God, because there were so many problems. I can't deal
with this right now. Yeah.
Too many problems at this point already with the show.
It's very frustrating.
And you knew they were. You didn't want to believe it. You didn't want to believe it. And I still went, and I went back and I looked to make sure. And I'm still not sure how Thomas managed. I'm going, well, maybe he's not really dead. No, I don't want him to really be dead. But I'm not sure that bomb was enough to have.
It's hard to tell what size that bomb actually was. I completely agree with you on that front.
And did he fly off the pole?
Yeah, he was blasted away. Well, no, but you got to remember, there was a timer and there was the step off. So when the timer ran out, he was just blasted away from the pole. It was very upsetting. So
why he didn't take a chance
and just dive away
after his son was free and run away?
Yeah, the timer's going down. Just dive off of it and hope.
Pray.
Hope costs you nothing.
That's it. You're gonna die if the bomb goes off, so you might as well try and run away.
Yeah, there's no reason not to.
Because you have a few seconds.
Subject.
Yeah, you would have a few seconds.
Oh, yeah.
And he would have run towards his son and
Katrina's
his daughter.
safely away. Katrina's safely taken the son away when there's still 15 seconds left, and then she starts running back, and he blows up. I'm like, just dive off. Yeah, why not? Well, take a chance.
My
Go
line
for it.
is, my line is that why did Katrina have to take the son away?
Because she didn't want him to get blown up.
Well, no, because the father says just run.
Yeah.
And he's a smart enough kid. He would have just run to his mother.
Yeah, but then Katrine's going to get blown up too. The bomb was on the timer. Well, maybe
that would have been better.
Ouch! I'm not disagreeing with you.
Jeez.
No,
I totally
get
and then they all sit there in horror, and we have the funeral scene at the end.
Jesus.
I mean, that would have been more satisfactory. I mean, I didn't understand because this child understands.
Oh, yeah.
And he would have just run to his mother so fast.
Oh, yeah. No, you didn't need Katrine to get this child away. But it's like Katrine staying couldn't have done anything because it's not like she's a bomb technician.
Well, no, but she could have ripped out the wires, like you said.
Yeah, just rip out the wires.
And then, if that's the case, why did she go, why
well, she
bother?
runs back to try and get to him. It's not like she doesn't run back. She's going to try to help. She doesn't know what to do. As we've established, she's obsessed with Thomas. Suddenly.
Yeah,
in a plot element that has not been layered into the show up until this point.
Yeah, it was.
I agree with you.
Like,
I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you 100%. It's frustrating. It's a deeply frustrating episode. Yeah.
She has kept her cool time and time again in the worst situations.
Oh, yeah.
In all of this, except for the prison. That's the only time.
Yeah. Which is why that would have been a perfect time to pay off, like, the stuff with her stepfather. Like, this would have been the perfect time to do it. Find some way to bring that back.
Yeah, but that's not what they end up doing. And she's lost her cool. So did they have to imply that she was in love with Thomas? And that's what was sending her round the bend again?
Maybe.
Because I don't know what do you mean? You have to have had some bomb training.
No, you don't. No. I'm not willing to go that far. I am going to say that it is very rare for cops to have to deal with bomb. Like, because you got to remember, the world isn't the TV show Flashpoint. Now,
that's right.
People who are listening to this,
that was so funny,
are probably not familiar with long-running TV, like Canadian cop show Flashpoint. But Flashpoint was a cop show.
Starring Enrico.
Yes, Colin Tony from Veronica Mars. Our beloved
Veronica Mars'
Keith
mother.
Mars.
Father.
Yeah. Our beloved Keith Mars.
Mars,
but the important part about the show is it posited a world in which basically in every week somebody was taking hostages or setting off a bomb in Toronto. In Toronto, Ontario.
I mean, I don't know how anybody, but it was on for so long.
It was on for so long. And that show ran forever.
Yeah, and because the cast was good.
It's a good cast. It's a fun show to watch, but it's such a ridiculous premise.
But only be upstaged by the weird premise of the remake of
which
the one with Linda Hamilton.
Oh, one of the
that
Terminators?
Shrewsbury did. No,
yeah,
the one that
Crossing
you went
Lines
and said,
or whatever. Yes,
and you called it,
so you're doing Canadian in the Wire, and that is not something they wanted to hear.
They didn't want to hear it, but it was.
They were so sick of being told that it was the Canadian in the Wire that I definitely didn't get a job on their project.
Which was too bad.
Which is too bad. I'm sure they could have used me. But anyway, the funny thing is, when you watch this show, right, you're like stuck in this ridiculous idea that, there's ever a call for this kind of work in Canada. There's just not. It's like that old thing from the 90s that Ottawa had like the best trained SWAT team in the world because they massively and this is true, they massively funded the SWAT team because we're a town that has, and this is also true, more embassies than any other city on earth. Right? Ottawa has more embassies than any other city on earth.
Well, just remember when we had the fire in our house,
I was about to say, this is the story I'm about to tell.
Okay.
And so, you might have remembered this thing called the Rwandan genocide. Now, when I was growing up, I lived 2 doors down from the Rwandan embassy. And so I found out a lot from the SWAT guys who were always there. Because literally, for 2 years, there was a SWAT team van every night across the street from our house. Because they were constantly getting threats because of the genocide they were doing. Like, I'm not saying it was bad the SWAT team was there. And so I found out from the SWAT team guys that the SWAT team in Ottawa train 24/7. Like, that's all they do. Because there's never actually any hostage situations. There's no hostage situations in Ottawa. There's no bombs in Ottawa. So they just train. That's all they do.
Yeah.
And so they had like international SWAT competitions. They did great in, and all of and they're thought of as the best trained and the most expert in the world. But it's only because they never actually have to do anything. They're never actually in danger. It's like the safest kind of cop you can be is an Ottawa SWAT.
Ottawa.
In Ottawa is to be in the Ottawa SWAT team. And weirdly, it's the same for Toronto. And which is why we find it so funny that like, they made a TV show about the ridiculous idea, right? That there would ever be this kind of need for this kind of a team in Toronto of all places. Yeah. But yeah, so no, I will fight you on the idea that any random cop would have SWAT training or have the slightest idea what to do when they see a bomb.
But then the point is if she was, I mean, given that she has done other things that were risky, then she should have just ripped the wires out when it was clear that there was a time limit on it.
Exactly. There's a time limit on it. Just go for it. There's no...
Just go for it.
Nothing to lose. Just go for it.
Because the timer has to hit zero. The timer has to hit zero for the thing to blow up. Well, if the timer isn't connected...
Yeah, then there you go. Yeah, well, and the same thing. Like, literally, inside, here's some behind-the-scenes stuff in how you make bombs. Like, you have to get electricity to that blasting cap, or the blasting cap's not going to go off. So if you pull out all of the wires that could conceivably, move electricity to the blasting cap's not going to go off. It's just that is the one scientific thing I know about bombs. The other scientific thing I know about bombs is you can freeze them and they won't work. Most chemical reactions do not function when something is below zero. So if you get some liquid nitrogen on that bad boy, the bomb just shuts off. Because the explosion can't happen. In the same way, if you had a brick of gasoline, right, and you froze it, if you took some gasoline, you freeze it into a brick, you're not going to be able to light that brick on fire because that chemical reaction can't happen when it's frozen. Most, almost every explosive is exactly the same way. The chemical reaction can't happen when it's frozen. It's just a fact of how when it becomes inert. You're absolutely right. That is the word I was searching for. Thank you very much. It becomes inert, functional.
But it's so funny because I also think, well, why wasn't somebody looking for this guy? They must have figured that he would be around.
Yeah. And but the problem is, because they never figured out that he was the one in the car, they didn't realize his family. Also, honestly, with that killer running around.
But they knew.
Why wasn't his family under way more protection the minute they thought the killer was in his car strangling him with a wire?
Yeah.
Why wasn't his family out of the city and under protection at that point?
Yeah. No, we're going to send a cop around once an hour.
Yeah, once an hour a cop will drive by.
Or once a half hour.
Thumbs up. That'll save the day.
You just sort of, why haven't they moved them into a hotel?
Yeah, that's what I put. Well, because then the end of the episode can't happen.
Well, yes, of course.
Sorry, now I'm just thinking about the terrible way they wrapped it up on the British version of Touching Evil, where the father has amazingly happens to have a rifle and figures out where they're manages to infiltrate their police ring as they're moving a witness and executes them. Jesus, it was so terrible. We didn't like that episode, by the way. In case that wasn't clear, we didn't like that episode.
No, and guess what? We don't like this one either.
No, it's worse.
Yeah.
It's not worse.
It's much worse.
No, it is worse because Dave got killed in this. Thomas instead of Dave got killed in this one.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe they were really pissed off that they weren't going to get another season.
Yeah, maybe.
And they couldn't have cared less in the writing room. Yeah, they wanted to burn it all down.
Honestly, now that you say it that way, I think you could be right.
Yeah, the writing room just said, let's burn it down and do something stupid. Well, yeah, okay, you succeeded. If that was your intent,
if the goal here was to do something stupid, you pulled it off. Bravo.
Yeah. I can't believe it.
No.
So I was thinking maybe we should go to profiler next, and then before we get on
before
to the
we
Swedish
sample
one.
we'll talk. It's not the Swedish one. They just brought it back in Denmark. You got to stop thinking it's in Sweden.
Yes, I
just
don't
brought
know
the show
why
back.
I say that. I don't know why they brought it back.
It's
Denmark.
because when you look at Swedish, Danish names, you just think you're looking at Swedish names, and that's not something wrong with that. That doesn't mean you're a bad person. You just have to admit it's a thing you do.
Yes, it is the thing I do.
All right. So, we got real mad watching this episode. Like, we had our ups and downs, but I'm honestly glad we did the show and review last week, so we could end with something nice to say about it.
Yes. Yeah, because there is nothing. There is nothing. This is as bad as the end of Shooter, that movie Shooter.
It's as bad as the end of the TV show Shooter. It's worse than the end of American Those Who Kill.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, although I gotta say, we'll never have the chance to ask them, but it's like, were you inspired, dear Morgan Brothers, were you inspired by the terrible ending of Those Who Kill to also give your show a terrible ending? Question we will never ask the Morgan Brothers.
We will never ask them, because I do think that they were hamstrung by trying to get a second season and another 10 episodes.
No, I'm sure you're
12
right.
episodes, yeah.
Whatever it was, yeah. That wouldn't shock me in the least, you know.
Because understand, some of the, and I can't say that about this show. What I can say about the Morgan Brothers is that there are some that still make me sad when I think about them. Yeah. And I cannot say that there is not one of these episodes that I'm ever going to think about fondly.
No, I'm with you.
Because they made me feel that. I think that's the problem. Yeah. Okay. The biggest problem between this one and the Morgan Brothers, you could feel sometimes so sorry for the killer. Whereas
that's true.
Whereas here,
you just don't.
There is not one of these killers that I can think of that I am going to, and that's because of the way it's all structured and the people and everything else. But, and I did say last time, okay, it's because they also don't go into the backstory of these killers to find out. Yeah. And they do in the Morgan Brothers.
Yeah, they do.
That's the one thing in the Morgan Brothers. And what happens is with Those Who Kill is that we are stuck with the episodes of Criminal Minds that we get so pissed off at because they don't give us a backstory.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And there are episodes of Criminal Minds where they don't give you a satisfactory backstory. They don't
justify it.
No, and you don't. Yeah, and because even with that woman with the dowsing, right? What? You understood that the woman who was in love with killers, right?
Oh, yes. Divining
killers,
rod
right?
is the word.
Dividing rod is the word, yeah.
Yeah, divining rod.
And,
in case you're wondering why she said dowsing, it's because dowsing, which, I'm going to agree with your pronunciation, dowsing, is what you do with a divining rod. That is the action of using a divining rod. The technical term for that is called dowsing. So there you go.
Yeah, you're supposed to be looking for water.
Yeah, or oil, or theoretically gold. It's a ridiculous nonsense pseudoscience. Yeah, it is. It is one of all of the pseudosciences. Dowsing is one of the most ridiculous. I'm gonna die on that hill. Like of being having no patience for dowsing. Yeah, no, that I'm comfortable saying. I got no patience for dowsing.
It's so silly.
It is ridiculous. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
That was Those Who Kill. We got real angry at it at the end. We weren't expecting to. Kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't have that nasty things to say about it before the last episode. No. We were weirdly positive about this show and sad about what they, and I think we were pretty even-handed describing what they did to it in the American version and saying, here are the differences, here are the better parts, here are the worst parts. I think we were pretty even-handed right up until
Thank God we did it last week because you're right. Yes. And this week is they just burned the house down.
They did. And that is the seeming motivation, is to leave nothing.
Yeah.
You know, leave nothing left. Burn it all down.
Except for Lars. Molbeck,
the only
too,
guy, Molbeck, the one guy who's stuck
Yeah.
around to...
But there's just Lars.
Yeah, Lars and Molbeck there, who are just stuck around to keep doing the job while everybody else dies or leaves.
Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. So, that was the show. We were real sad. If you have any questions about that show, if you have any comments, if there's any profiling related fiction you want us to watch that is, fingers crossed, a little better than this, drop us a line at profilingcriminalminds@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. If you're listening on an app or podcatcher, rate, review, and subscribe, because that's how more people find out about the show. And I assume you want to share it with other people. Why else would you be listening? I'm so mad.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing that I can't believe. It's like, it's not like I didn't know shows had the capability of making me mad. I'm not insane. Of course, television can make you mad. But I was not expecting to be this mad when I finished watching the show. But it made me furious.
Yeah.
It really did. So yeah, rate, review, subscribe. We're going to see you back here. So here's what's going to happen. We're recording this in October. Last episode of this is going up sometime, November, December? Somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
December, I think.
December. All right, there you go. Right. And so I don't know what we're back next week yet. We're probably going to watch the first few episodes of Danish, Those Who Kill, the remake, right? And depending on how we feel about that, we're going to make a decision about whether we're going to discuss that whole season. Like, if the first couple of episodes are good, we'll probably talk ourselves into continuing to watch it. I think, based on knowing us as people, it's fair to say that we're probably going to do that, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, just based on how we operate.
After
right, no, what I'm saying is right now you're pissed. Right now you have every reason to be pissed. I'm just saying we might not stay pissed. That's all I'm saying, right?
Okay, yeah.
We might not stay pissed. Like, crazier things have happened. But either that, or, as crazy as this is, we're obviously not going to be watching Criminal Minds until next year. So we might be starting up, this is going to sound crazy, the TV show Profiler.
Yeah.
A thing we've hesitated to do for literally years now. We've used every excuse to try and not have to watch the TV show Profiler, but we may have just run out of excuses. So yeah, that should be fun. We'll see you back here for that next week, but until then, I'll say that's right. Au revoir.
And have a good week.